Welcome to the Intimate Marriage Podcast, where I teach educated, successful couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships so that you can stop compromising and start feeling fully alive in your relationship. I'm Alexandra Stockwell, aka the Intimacy Doctor. I'm a physician, a relationship and intimacy coach, and I'm an intimate marriage expert. My husband and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing marriage. I've shown hundreds of couples how to do so as well. So if you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place. I will show you how. Now, let's dive in. Today's episode is another Q&A episode where I'm going to answer questions that I've received from listeners, members of the Intimate Marriage Facebook group, and others that have just been sent my way through social media DMs or otherwise. Before we do that, I want to read a testimonial from a woman who coached with me. It was not couples coaching. It was just her. She, magnificent woman. I forget how long we've been married when we coached. Maybe 25 years. What she sent me afterwards, it was actually a few months later. I discovered that the path to love him well and to feel truly loved by him, she's referring to her husband, requires me to love and care for myself at levels of devoted attention that I had yet to attune to. So here I am, slowly, softly, soulfully, being present to myself with no expectations of him. And wow, is he showing up. He's demonstrating so much interest in me spontaneously. There is a lure in self-love and care. Thank you for opening my eyes to this truly fulfilling way of being. I loved reading this, receiving these words. I hope you enjoy them too, because the reality is when you feel connected to yourself, when you treat yourself well, invariably your partner will do so too. Now that is especially true if you're a woman. And while I don't generally believe in universalities or stereotyping, if you are a man married to a woman, I encourage you to give her love and attention that's calibrated to how she would like to receive it. And it's quite likely she'll become more generous and open to you. If you help in either of those things, as a woman listening or a man listening or a couple together, by all means, reach out to me. You can go to my website, alexandrastockwell.com, and go to the contact page and fill out the application to coach with me, because it is my pleasure, my expertise, my gift, my inspiration to show you how to be that for yourselves and one another. If you want more fulfillment in your marriage, you absolutely can learn how. It's what I teach every day I coach. So you can have it if you're ready. This is definitely not for everyone. If you think the problem is your partner and you just want them to change, then that's fine, but I'm not your coach. But if you're both ambitious, educated professionals and you both are willing to take responsibility and learn how you individually can show up in a way that enhances the chemistry between the two of you, well, then I'm your woman, because if you bring that to the table, there's no issue which is insurmountable. There's no challenge which is too much, because so long as you're both willing to do your part in making your marriage feel good for you and your partner, well, then all you're missing is education, tools, skills, which I can easily give to you and you will implement and be gratified by. I invite you to reach out if this sounds like something you want. And with that, I'm going to dive into the Q&A. The first question, how does commitment play with intimacy? What does commitment even mean? How do we trust our partner's commitment? What do we do when we start to notice a difference in our commitment to the marriage versus our partners? I think this is a really, really good question. Now, I know, what does commitment mean? There are some of you listening glad to go in the direction of polyamory and open-heartedness, and there are many places where you can do that. That's not the direction that I'm going to go with this question. What I want to say is that you can have amazing experiences in a one-night stand without commitment, but also really without intimacy. You can have passion. But when you are in a committed relationship, you have a life together and you interact every day on a regular basis, then yes, the level of commitment that you have to the quality of your interaction, to the experience you have in the marriage, to your partner's well-being, the quality of that commitment, the degree of that commitment absolutely influences the quality of intimacy you can have. And what I want to say even more is how your partner experiences your commitment influences the intimacy you're having. So if you're listening and you know you're committed, you love your partner a lot, but your partner doesn't experience that. They don't feel it, either because you know it and you don't show it, or you know it and you don't express it, or you know it, you express it, you show it, but your partner has difficulty actually believing it, difficulty receiving it due to intimacy wounding and childhood conditioning and so forth. Either way, when one of you questions the level of your own commitment or the level of your partner's commitment, that absolutely restricts the quality of the intimacy that you can have with one another. Now, when the commitment is clear, but things are kind of flat and dehydrated, and you want to feel more alive, then sure, you can be attracted to somebody else and use that to get the juices flowing and bring all of that into the marriage. That is certainly possible. But the commitment that I'm talking about here, it's not merely a commitment to fidelity or a commitment to the relationship lasting. It's a commitment to showing up for yourself, to showing up for the relationship, to taking responsibility for your experience within the relationship and for the experience that you are contributing to your partner. That when you are committed to really doing your best in those areas, which doesn't mean feeling a lot of pressure in every single moment, but just overall committed to continuing to grow, continuing to show up, being willing to receive feedback of how your intentions are misinterpreted and try again, that when you have that level of commitment, the intimacy reflects it. Because the nature of intimacy is a willingness to reveal yourself, to reveal who you are. I've said before on the podcast how sometimes people define intimacy as into me you see. And I don't actually think that's helpful because it puts the onus on the person doing the seeing. When it comes to intimacy, it's how much you're willing to reveal. How vulnerable are you willing to be in order to feel closer, to have more connection, have more of your desires come true because you've expressed what they are. Whether we're talking about emotional intimacy or erotic intimacy, this is all true. So I think of the commitment to your experience in the relationship and to the relationship, and therefore also, of course, to your partner. The commitment is like the container, the vessel. And with the high-quality vessel, you can put all manner of contents and intimacy inside it. But if the vessel, like if you have a cup and sometimes you like room temperature, sometimes you like wine, chilled wine, sometimes you like hot chocolate, you want to be free for whatever beverage is calling to your fancy, that the cup will hold it. But if the cup, which is representing commitment, is kind of thin in some areas or sloppy, well, all it does is hold air. So back to this question, what do we do when we start to notice a difference in our commitment compared to our partners? Well, if it's yours, which is diminishing, I invite you to explore that. Why is that? Do some journaling, take some walks in nature and think about it. Take a hot bath and see what comes to mind. Like, why is that? Do you feel too vulnerable? Do you want more attention? Are you jealous? Are you burned out by other things in your life and you just don't have energy? Is there some habit that you find annoying, irksome, and triggering that your partner has? Like, what is it? And sometimes just putting attention on why your commitment is diminishing and realizing it just has you recommit. And other times getting clear about that means you can then bring up whatever the issue is. And if you feel like your partner's commitment is diminishing, then without attacking, without blaming, without shaming, real genuine curiosity and clearly a kind of vulnerability, find out why. And by the way, if you don't know how to do this, because bringing up challenging topics is a recurring theme in our marriage that's full of vitality and passion and nourishment. It's when you avoid these conversations that things become dehydrated and flat. So if you want to have vitality and fulfillment in your connection, then it's essential to learn how to make these communications. And the Aligned and Hot Marriage program, my independent study program, I'll put the link in the show notes. It gives you so much. And one of the things it gives you is the tools to carefully, confidently, and successfully have such a conversation. But anyway, you want to investigate and ask in such a manner that your partner can answer honestly. Maybe they're stressed about work. Maybe they're worn out. Maybe they're concerned about aging and it's complicated. Maybe you've just been really unpleasant to be around. You're only going to find out if you ask, and if you think you already know, ask anyway, because this is an area where projection and inference and assumption is really not going to help you. So if you have any follow-up questions, if this was the question you asked or a question you anyway have, feel free to contact me through social media or through my website, and I'll be happy to respond in the next episode when I answer your question. And I want to, again, just reiterate that the Aligned and Hot Marriage program is really a fairly easy, fun, impactful curriculum that will give you tools that you'll use the rest of your life in order to address complicated topics in a way that feels good and brings you closer together. You can find that either on my website or alignedhotmarriage.com. As I said, I'll put it in the show notes. All right, moving on to question 2. This is actually a super long question. And so I'm just going to summarize it by saying that this is also from a woman who has had a fairly traditional, long-lasting marriage. Her husband works. He's worked hard as long as they've been married, and she's more the one at home taking care of the children. She's actually a nurse. She works part-time. But the point is that their roles are more traditional. And she's now, children are older. I think they're mostly out of the house. And she wants to pursue her own interests, and her husband is not being supported. That's the gist of the question. So he has put a great deal of time and energy and attention into working, and she's been supportive. And now she has room to pursue other things. She enjoys hiking. She wants to take a dance class. She just has various interests that she wants to pursue, and she wants to pursue them with her girlfriends. That's actually an important part of this question, because he doesn't actually want to come with her because he's not interested in those things, but he doesn't want her to go do them either with other people because he wants her to be with him. This is a very traditional arrangement, which I think for many of us, that would have been the dynamic more with our parents or more likely grandparents. And it's still relevant for people today, for sure, including some of my loyal listeners. So thank you for the question. All right. So how to navigate this? The first thing, let me be very, very clear, is that, yes, of course you should pursue your passions and do the things that are important to you. And there's a way to do them that really fills you up. And then you bring home the happy, fulfilled, magnetic, joyful woman. And there's a way to pursue them that is essentially avoiding spending time with your husband. And if it's the latter, he's going to perceive that and be resentful. And if it's the former, meaning it's for your own pleasure and fulfillment and joy, then the key thing is to adjust the culture in your marriage so there's room for that. So let me just say, in terms of the first thing, if you're spending time pursuing hobbies and activities, going to various events with other people, pretty much because you want to get away from being with your husband, well, then it's really not about what you're doing. It's about the fact that you want to get away from your husband, and that needs attention on its own. And in that scenario, the right question is not the one that's been asked. It's not about how do I get my husband on board for me to go do other things. It's how do you find a way to really enjoy spending time with one another? And when that is the case, then sure, it'll be very straightforward for either one of you to go do things with other people sometimes. But I think that's a different question. The question you're really saying is you enjoy being together and you also want to pursue these other activities that you don't want to be required to get all of your fulfillment with your husband, especially because he doesn't really like other activities. He just wants to stay home and watch shows and hang out together. So the first thing that I want to say to you, if you've asked the question or you're in this situation or when that's close enough, is to say your desires matter. What fulfills you matters. You filling up your own cup, letting your soul be nourished, is incredibly important. And so what we're really talking about is how to evolve your marriage so that it includes both of you being gratified. And the thing that I want to say is that if you come home in a way that it feels good to be around you, that you're more generous, more present, he's going to be glad for you to go. But if you come home trying to hide your joy because you don't want to trigger him, then it's going to continue to be complicated if you go do your own thing. I think that's really the bottom line here, is when you go out and have fun with your friends, let it feel wonderful when you come home. Let it be something he really looks forward to as well once he's experienced it. Because so often when we independently feel more joyful, we tend to not want to share that, not want to show that to our spouse when we come home since they missed it. And that's really not helpful, not in a scenario like this. I have one more question about birth trauma and sex. Now, this is a really complex topic, and anything related to trauma, I want to honor that the healing process is slow and deliberate. And so I'm not really going to fully answer this question, except to say that after giving birth, a woman needs to get reacquainted with her body, and it's a process that can't be rushed. So the most important thing is that you're open with one another and that you share enough so that shame doesn't get in the way of the two of you reconnecting again. And if you're a husband navigating this, just listening and being compassionate and supportive and offering non-sexual physical touch to start with is one of the best ways that you can find your way back to one another. And if you're a woman who's experienced birth trauma and now it's impacting your sex life, I want to invite you to do the work you need to do, whether you work with a trauma therapist or some other way, because just compartmentalizing this is not actually a solution. Our libido and sexuality has a long, reliable memory, better than our brains do. So you might not be thinking about it, but your body will respond in that context. And if birth has had a complicated impact on your body, please take the care, time, professional expertise to really reconnect with yourself in a way that feels beautiful, erotically alive, and really grounded, having alchemized and integrated the experiences you've had. So if you have any questions about anything I've spoken about today or a completely different topic, you can definitely reach me through a contact form on my website at alexandrastockwell.com, and I'll be glad to respond the next time I do a Q&A episode.